The map, it blew out the window long ago, so that's gone. I just don't know where I am. And my GPS, my global positioning system, is not working. So I turned it off. But I'm lost. And so I pull into an old gas station. And the door's wide open. There's an old-fashioned Coke dispenser right next to the door, dispensing old-timey glass bottles of Coke. And there's no twist-off here. There's a bottle opener nailed to the wall right next to the machine you used to pop the top. Inside, you see there's two customers leaning up against a kind of a dirty, greasy counter. And there's two more sitting just outside in old ragtag chairs that you pass by as you go in the door. And they're just standing there, they're just sitting there watching traffic idle by, whiling away an afternoon. A sleepy Mayberry type street. And you ask for help. You ask for directions. I'm going here. How do I get there from here? And of course the first old man speaks up, says, well, you can't get there from here. But eventually the guys pull it together. And they begin talking about this and that route, about detours they know of, about closures, about possible floodings. And eventually, as they pull it together, they tell you what you want to hear, what you need to know. And you realize you couldn't have done it without them as you head back out on the highway. You couldn't have done it without them. They were invaluable help and have now become ingrained into the story of your travels. Their story has become your story and yours theirs. Now, in this 14th chapter of Luke, there's a number of stories that I mentioned a little bit earlier. There's a number of stories being told, and Jesus wants to make sure that we know we are part of that story. He is part of that story for us. His story has become our story, and ours has become his. And so he tells of healing a man on the Sabbath day, a contentious act, if you will. It may or may not have been lawful to do so. And there's talk of a wedding feast, a parable of the wedding feast, where guests, as they come in, always seem to want to sit in the seat of honor, where the honored guest sits. And Jesus says, no, don't sit in the honored seat. Go sit in the back. Because if you sit in the honored seat and you're not the honored guest, you'll be asked to get up and move so that the honored guest can sit down. And that will be a little bit embarrassing. But if you sit in the back to begin with and you are the honored guest, the master, the host, will call you up to the front and say, look, this is my friend, he's my honored guest. And put you in the seat of honor, and you will be lifted up. There's a parable of a great banquet, where the host invites many to join him for this specially prepared feast. But at the time of the banquet, the guests begin to make excuses as to why they can't attend. One just bought a field and wants to go out and inspect it. I'm sorry, I can't make the meal. I have to go walk the fields. Another bought 5 yoke of oxen and wanted to look them over. Oh, sorry, I can't make it. I have to look at my newly purchased yoke of oxen. Another says, I'm newly married, and no, I can't just bring my wife. I have to go spend time with her. As I said earlier, these aren't reasons, they're excuses. No one is coming. And so the master of the house grew angry and told his servants, go out into the streets, go out into the lanes of the city and bring in the crippled and the poor, the blind and the lame. Bring them in and we'll feed them. And so the servants do this, But even inviting all of them in, there is still room for more people. And so the master said to the servants, head out on the highways and the byways and the hedges and compel people to come in for this free, delicious, opulent meal. And so they did. And they brought in more guests. And all were honored guests. These are whom Jesus calls to him, much like the master of that house did. The least, the lame, the halt, the hungry, diseased, the humble and blind, lonely and ostracized from the rest of society, the cast-outs and castaways. This is who Jesus calls to him. These are the people who weren't invited originally to sit at the table. And Jesus says, well, that's wrong. They need to be invited. And he calls these people to him. And that's the parable, the story that he gives to us. And he's not quite done with stories because he gives two more. He talks about the cost of discipleship and then salt without its taste being useless. So there's all these stories in one chapter. If you haven't read chapter 14 of Luke, I encourage you to do so. Read that chapter. And there's a whole lot to try to figure out on your own. And so you have to admit that you need a little bit of help in understanding what is this really saying. I'm a little bit lost. I need some guidance. I need my coffee clutch, my study group, my Bible study, my in-home study group. I need my Sunday mornings. I need the pastor. To make sure that not only are my day-to-day physical travels being well taken care of and that I'm headed down the highway in the right direction, but that I'm giving the same intimate care and attention to my spiritual travels. But as prepared as we can be, there's no accounting for events that change our travel plans. A friend of mine, his name is Scott, a district superintendent in the United Methodist Church. He's about my age. And I've known him 12, 14, maybe a little bit longer years. And he sent out a message a month or two ago saying that he had been diagnosed with leukemia. Unexpected, very unexpected. And he had no control over it. It was very much a highway change for him. A detour, if you will. Getting off the main highway and pulling on a side road. Now, it's early days for him, but he's getting good medical advice and guidance. He's gathering friends together for support and encouragement and prayer. And he's going to need all of this as the going gets tougher. And he knows the destination. You see, two things that haven't changed in this journey. His starting place. He started here. That's never going to change. That's in the past. It's set in time. That starting point is... The destination isn't changing for him either. He knows where he's going. He knows Christ has a seat at the table prepared for him. And knowing Scott, he's not going to miss that meal when he's invited. Nor is he going to go right up to the front seat and sit in a seat of honor. He's too humble for that. He'll sit in the back and wait to be invited up to the front. Well, Scott's route has changed a bit. He's detoured off the main highway, and the view is going to look different from here on out. Oncoming traffic may appear more dangerous than it did before. Mountain views are less majestic and more of reminders of the hills he has to climb. But again, his starting place hasn't changed. His destination hasn't changed. He still has the same dinner plans at the table of Christ. But in between those 2 points, changes have happened. ready for those changes in our lives. We have to know that we're going to encounter roadblocks and detours and flooded out roads and landslides. We may need to rely on guardrails just to keep us on the highway so we don't zoom down off a cliff. We need to know that the signs are going to change. But our destination hasn't. And Christ has given us all we need to face all of this. Thanks be to God.